Passage 3, page 161. Questions 11 through 16. Listen to part of a lecture in an education class.
Okay, all of you are enrolled in this introductory education course because you want to become teachers. I think it's important for you as aspiring teachers to understand how education has developed over the centuries. So today, I'd like to address an issue that has come up again and again in our nation's history, and one that, in fact, was taken for granted through most of our history. That issue is character education. And that's not to say that there had not also been a focus on basic academic subjects, of course. But since the founding of this country, public education has been responsible for instilling the nation's youth with the values of our society. In the earliest New England schools, religious texts, specifically the Protestant Bible, were used to develop the moral character of the students. Now, this was acceptable at the time because the students were all of the same faith. Through the 19th century, this dimension of character development continued. However, with the great influx of immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries from many societies and religious backgrounds, character education began to be formalized around the importance of societal values, such as discipline, hard work, fairness, kindness, and so on. Essentially, as the United States became more diverse, it became necessary to move away from any one religion's views and move toward an approach in which societal influences and universally held beliefs in good and evil became the moral focus of teaching. Now, educators then, even at the beginning of the 20th century, were expected to be virtuous. Leaders in the development of public education all agreed that teachers should be shining examples of moral correctness and goodness. It was thought that only people with upstanding character could impart the proper values to the children, and that's what teachers were supposed to do. Now, I'm going to tell you about some of the rules for teachers that were common in the early 20th century, and you'll get a clearer idea of what it meant to demonstrate upstanding moral character at that time. Now, the rules weren't just about how a teacher could conduct herself in the classroom and on the school grounds. There were also numerous rules that governed just about everything a teacher did. Teachers had to follow strict rules about their appearance. They were sometimes told not to wear colorful clothing, not to dye their hair or wear it loose, and not to wear their skirts above the ankle. Teachers' whereabouts during after-school hours were also strictly regulated. There were rules forbidding teachers to go to bars and to ice cream parlors. There were rules requiring teachers to be home after 8 o'clock in the evening. And there were some rules forbidding them to leave town without permission. So just about any action a teacher wanted to take could be regulated. Teachers could be forbidden to smoke or to drink. They were also sometimes forbidden to spend time with men or to marry if they wanted to remain teachers. However, after the middle of the 20th century, things began to change. The race to the moon triggered a shift from an equal focus on moral training in schools to a much greater emphasis on academics, especially science and math. Again, this doesn't mean there was no focus on basic academic subjects before. Schools had always taught reading, writing, and math, but there was a dual focus on character education. What I mean is the focus shifted more to the academic side. And this happened during a time of increasing diversity in the country. See, educators recognized that it was becoming difficult or impossible to agree on specific morals for the classroom. So schools backed away from trying to teach values to their students, leaving it instead to parents and students' religious communities. But now, anyone who has dealt with children knows that it's impossible to take the teaching of morality and values out of a place where children spend so much of their time. Respect for other people and authority, self-discipline, conflict resolution, and such things are obviously full of value judgments. And it'll be obvious to anyone who has dealt with children and teenagers that they need a lot of guidance on these questions. Okay, so as a result of this, beginning in the 1980s and 90s, character education came back into fashion. New initiatives have partnered the government with the school districts to develop and implement programs in conflict resolution, tolerance, and so on. So, this is the state of public education that you will face one day. I want you to consider this idea. I propose that teachers in the early 21st century are also held to a higher standard. Although there aren't explicit rules about teachers' behavior outside of class, they are being asked to help develop the character of their students. And this is being asked of teachers without there being any clear set of moral rules or expectations that all parents of school children agree on.